15 months. That is how long Lilly Sullivan and her younger brother Jack have been gone. 15 months. Of search dogs moving through the same stretch of forest. Of RCMP officers filing the same kind of press release. Of a mother in rural Nova Scotia folding birthday cards for children who are not there to open them. In a country where the overwhelming majority of missing children are found within days, Lilly and Jack Sullivan have become something almost without precedent. Two small children who vanished from their own backyard, in broad morning light, without a single confirmed sighting since. On the morning of May 2, 2025, 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan were inside their family's rural home on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne Station, Pictou County. Within the span of roughly 90 minutes, they were gone. No scream that could be verified. No footprint trail that led anywhere conclusive. No evidence, investigators would say again and again in the months that followed, of abduction. And yet no explanation either of where two small children could have gone on their own and stayed hidden for this long. This is their story, built entirely from what has been confirmed. RCMP statements, court documents, and reporting from CBC News, The Globe and Mail, and Newsweek. Nothing here is speculation dressed up as fact. Where the record is uncertain, that uncertainty will be named. Because right now, uncertainty is the only honest thing anyone can offer this family. Before we go any further, where are you watching from tonight? Type your city or town in the comments below. Lilly and Jack's case has reached international attention, and someone watching this right now might live closer to Pictou County than they realize, or might simply be the person who shares this story with someone who does. Every set of eyes matters here. Lilly Sullivan was born in March 2019. Her brother Jack followed on October 29, 2020. They lived with their mother, Malahia Brooks Murray, their mother's partner Daniel Martell, and their 1-year-old half-sister Meadow on a rural property surrounded by woods, steep banks, and thick brush along Gairloch Road, a sparsely populated stretch of road roughly 140 kilometers northeast of Halifax, closer in field to backcountry than suburb. The children attended Salt Springs Elementary School. In the days before they disappeared, ordinary family routine is what the record shows. A school professional development day on April 30th, a grocery trip that same evening with the whole family, home by 19 p.m. The following afternoon, May 1st, the family traveled to the nearby town of New Glasgow, where Jack and Lilly were captured on surveillance video with their mother, stepfather, and baby sister inside a Dollarama at 2:25 p.m. It is the last confirmed footage anyone has of the two children in public. Lilly is described in official releases as having shoulder-length light brown hair with bangs. On the morning she disappeared, she is believed to have been wearing a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots. Jack had short, blondish hair and was wearing blue dinosaur boots. These are not incidental details. They are, to this day, the description investigators still hope someone, somewhere, might recognize. Lilly and Jack were also not without extended family, watching over them from a distance. Their biological father, Cody Sullivan, had been estranged from the children for roughly 3 years at the time of their disappearance, according to what he told police. Their paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray, has spoken publicly about keeping photographs of the children in her home in Upper Musquodoboit. Their maternal grandmother, Cindy Murray, has described the toll of the past year on her family in interviews with CBC, saying simply that they are still trying to stay positive while hoping for the best, even as the exhaustion of not knowing wears on everyone close to the children. Now that you know a little about who Lilly and Jack were, a 6-year-old with bangs and a favorite pink sweater, and a 4-year-old who loved his dinosaur boots, does either of them remind you of a child in your own life? Tell me in the comments. Keeping their names and their faces present in conversation is one of the few things any of us can actually do for them right now. The morning of May 2 unfolded, According to police records and court filings later obtained by CBC News and the Globe and Mail, in a way that has been picked apart by investigators for more than a year without resolution. Both children were kept home from school that day. Martel later said Lilly had a cough. At 6:15 a.m., Brooks Murray marked both children absent due to illness. Sometime between 8 and 9:40 a.m., Brooks Murray and Martel say they were in a bedroom with baby Meadow. Lilly, they said, came in and out of the room several times. Jack could be heard in the kitchen. And then, at some point in that window, the sounds of both children simply stopped. Brooks Murray has said that Martel had placed a wrench on top of the front door the night before, as what appears to have been an informal alert system, and that it had not been disturbed by the time they realized the children were gone, leading Martel to surmise the two must have left through the back sliding door, which he described as typically silent when opened. The couple began searching the property, calling out for the children. In a separate building on the same property, Martel's mother, Janie McKenzie, later told police she had fallen asleep around 8:50 a.m. and woke briefly to her dog barking, followed by what she believed was the sound of Jack and Lilly playing on the swings and laughing in the backyard, before she drifted back to sleep. It remains one of the last reported, if unconfirmed, traces of the children's voices. At 10:01 a.m., Brooks Murray called 911. Within hours, a multi-agency search was underway. Ground teams, drones, helicopters, and search dogs moving through dense, difficult terrain. Steep banks, bogs, and thick brush that made even organized search nearly impossible in places. Martel later told police that during the early search, he thought he heard a scream that may have belonged to one of the children, but that a helicopter passing overhead made it impossible to hear anything further. It is the kind of detail that offers no resolution, only the sense of something almost within reach, then gone. By early afternoon, the RCMP had gone public, stating their belief that the children had likely wandered from the home and that there was no evidence of abduction. By evening, a vulnerable missing persons advisory had been issued for Pictou County. That same night, in the early hours of May 3rd, Brooks Murray contacted police with a new possibility, that the children's biological father, Cody Sullivan, may have taken them across the provincial border into New Brunswick. Officers went to Sullivan's home at nearly 3 a.m. He told them he had not seen Jack or Lilly in 3 years and was not in possession of them. Investigators would later request toll camera footage from the Cobequid Pass, a checkpoint on the route to New Brunswick, as part of ruling the possibility in or out. Investigators had a wrench undisturbed on a front door, a possible scream lost beneath a helicopter, and a woman who briefly wondered if the children's own father had taken them across a provincial line, and still, the trail went cold. What do you think happened in that 90-minute window on the morning of May 2? Drop your theory in the comments. What followed was one of the largest search operations in Nova Scotia's history. Over the following days, the number of searchers climbed past 160, then beyond, eventually reaching figures cited by CBC at more than 1,700 search and rescue personnel, logging over 12,000 cumulative hours across roughly 8.5 square kilometers of dense woods. Ground teams, canine units, RCMP's underwater recovery team scouring nearby bodies of water, drones and helicopters overhead, all of it converging on a small rural property that, before May 2nd, had likely never seen this much attention in its history. By May 7th, RCMP Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon told reporters the search was being scaled back, noting there had been no confirmed sightings of the children and that it was considered unlikely they were still alive in the woods surrounding the property. It was a devastating early assessment. One, investigators have since had to sit alongside a mother who has continued, more than a year later, to say she believes her children are out there. The investigation did not stop when the ground search slowed. The Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit took over formal command on May 3rd, eventually coordinating with RCMP units across Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Ontario, along with the National Centre for Missing Persons and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. By June, more than 11 specialized RCMP units were involved: Major Crime, Digital Forensic Services, the Underwater Recovery Team, Police Dog Services, Behavioral Sciences, and the Truth Verification Section, which conducts polygraph examinations. Investigators disclosed that they had formally interviewed at least 54 people, some of whom were administered polygraph testing, and had reviewed hundreds of hours of surveillance video collected from the area around Gairloch Road. A pink blanket, found on Lansdowne Road and believed to belong to Lilly, was seized and sent for forensic examination. Investigators would not say publicly what, if anything, it revealed. On May 28th, RCMP disclosed a detail that reshaped public understanding of the case. Lilly and Jack had been observed in public with family members on May 1st, the day before they were reported missing, a reference to the Dollarama surveillance footage in New Glasgow. It confirmed the children were alive, together, and with their family less than 24 hours before they vanished. It also meant that whatever happened inside that final overnight window, on that property, and nowhere else that investigators have been able to document. For more than a year now, Lilly and Jack's family has waited, through a search that scaled back within a week, through a winter with no answers, through a second birthday for each child that no one got to celebrate with them. If you have ever had to wait for the truth about something you couldn't control, I want to hear about it in the comments. That kind of patience deserves to be acknowledged, not just endured quietly. As months passed, the case entered what investigators sometimes call the cold period, not because effort stopped, but because visible progress did. Renewed volunteer searches took place periodically, including one with 115 volunteers on May 18th, and another that marked the case's one-year anniversary in May 2026, when search volunteers again combed the woods near the children's home. Tips accumulated steadily, 180 within the first weeks, 488 by mid-June 2025, past 1,100 by February 2026, and beyond 1,050 confirmed as of a January 2026 update, generating more than 1,340 distinct investigative tasks for police to work through. In June 2025, the province added Lilly and Jack's case to Nova Scotia's Major Unsolved Crimes program, and by October 2025 was offering a reward of up to $150,000 for information of investigative value, one of the clearest signals that authorities considered the case a long-term undertaking, not a short-term search. Maleha Brooks Murray, meanwhile, largely stepped back from public statements after the case's earliest days, at one point leaving the area to be with family and, according to Martel, blocking him on social media. Her mother, Cindy Murray, told the Canadian press that police had advised the family against speaking to reporters. For a long stretch, the public face of the case became RCMP press releases, methodical, procedural, careful never to promise more than the evidence could support. In September 2025, specialized cadaver dog teams, trained specifically to detect the scent of human remains, searched roughly 40 kilometers of terrain around Lansdowne Station, covering the property itself, the pipeline and intersecting trails, and the area where the pink blanket had been found. According to RCMP, the dogs did not alert their handlers to any indication of human remains, a result investigators described as meaningful. If the dogs had been in the presence of that scent, they said, the training should have produced a response. It did not answer where the children were. But it added, however incrementally, to what investigators could rule out. We're about to reach the most recent chapter of this case, the one still unfolding as this video is being made. What do you think has been the biggest break, or the biggest complication, in the past year? Take a guess before you keep watching. The most significant developments in the Sullivan case did not come from the woods. They came from the courtroom. In August 2025, redacted court documents were released following information requests submitted on behalf of the Globe and Mail, CBC News, and the Canadian Press. Those documents confirmed that, as of mid-July 2025, the RCMP no longer considered the disappearance to be criminal in nature, language that shifted the case's formal classification, even as the agency continued devoting significant resources to it under the Missing Persons Act. A second, more consequential release followed in January 2026. Newly unsealed documents obtained by CBC News and the Globe and Mail detailed a police interview conducted with Brooks Murray on May 9, 2025, 1 week after the children disappeared, in which she discussed her relationship with Martel and alleged that he had, at points, been physically abusive toward her. Martel denied the allegations directly to Global News, stating, "I never physically abused Malaya," and describing the characterization as part of a narrative meant to paint him in a negative light. Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon, the RCMP's officer in charge of Major Crime and Behavioral Sciences, confirmed publicly that the nature of the relationship between Brooks Murray and Martel at the time of the disappearance remains part of the ongoing investigation. A statement of fact about investigative scope, not an accusation. An affidavit filed by RCMP as part of the same court submissions noted that investigators were leveraging technology-based investigative techniques which may provide information to support criminality and uncover the whereabouts of the missing children, language suggesting the door to a criminal reclassification had not been closed, even if it had not yet been opened. On January 26, 2026, Daniel Martel was arrested. The charges, sexual assault, and forcible confinement, involved an adult victim and were stated explicitly by police to be unrelated to the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. He was arraigned on March 2, 2026, and in May 2026, the case was rescheduled to that summer to allow additional time for disclosure. As with any person facing charges, Martel is presumed innocent unless and until proven otherwise in court, and these charges concern a separate matter entirely from the question of what happened to the two children. What has not changed through all of it is the central unanswered question. In August 2026, 15 months after her children disappeared, Malaya Brooks Murray gave her first extended public interview since the earliest days of the case, speaking with the Globe and Mail and CBC's The Current. She said she believes her children are still alive and raised the possibility that they may have been taken from the family's backcountry property by someone unknown to her. She described the pink blanket recovered during the search as a strip torn from a larger discarded blanket, one she said had been hanging on a porch railing before it turned up along a road some distance away, a detail she said she still cannot explain. She spoke about the day after the disappearance, when escalating tension between her family and Martel's led her to leave the property, at police's suggestion, in what she described as a state of shock. She has never returned to the mobile home since. And she described something that may be the most enduring image of this entire case. A mother who continues, more than a year on, to collect birthday, Easter, and Christmas gifts for two children who have not come home to open them. A quiet, private form of hope that refuses, even now, to give way to certainty in either direction. Investigators have echoed a version of that same refusal to give up. In a year-end interview, Chief Superintendent Dan Morrow of the Nova Scotia RCMP's Criminal Operations Division said he had never seen a case quite like this one in his career. Not because such disappearances are common, but because of how uniquely complex the circumstances have proven to be, requiring what he called a methodical approach rather than a fast one. As recently as January 2026, RCMP Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon told CBC News plainly that no one has been formally identified as a suspect, and that investigators continue gathering whatever evidence they can, prepared to let that evidence, not assumption, determine what happens next. Lilly Sullivan would be 8 years old now. Jack would be 6. Somewhere between a backyard swing set and early morning in May 2025, and this moment, right now, their story stopped being something their family could simply explain, and became something an entire country has been asked to help solve. More than 1,000 tips have come in. Dozens of interviews have been conducted. Cadaver dogs have searched and found nothing to confirm the worst. And still, the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit says its work continues daily, reviewing, assessing, and following every credible lead until, in their words, the circumstances surrounding Lilly and Jack's disappearance are determined with certainty. If you have any information, however small it may seem, about the whereabouts of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, you are asked to contact the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crime Unit at 902-896-5060. To remain anonymous, you can contact Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers, toll-free, at 1-800-222-TIPS, that's 8477, or submit a tip securely online through the Crime Stoppers website. Every case deserves an answer. Every family deserves the truth. If this story stayed with you, consider subscribing. There are more cases like this one that deserve to be remembered and to be found.